Concealed behind the amazing world building, smooth gameplay, and beautiful aesthetics lies a grim fact that none of us like to admit. Hollow Knight is an unbalanced mess. Hi there, I'm Holland and I absolutely love Hollow Knight, but here's the problem. Charms are not balanced. When I explored Hellenist for the first time, one of my favorite experiences was discovering new charms and trying them out in my builds. But once I'd collected them all, I soon realized that most, while intriguing, were simply far weaker than a few select powerhouses. So join me as I attempt to rebalance every charm in Hollow Knight in order to make each of them worth using. I won't be able to fit all of the reworks into this one video, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future installments. Now, here are the rules. 1. The goal is to make each charm feel powerful and worth using. The strength of a charm can be modified by changing its effect or adjusting its charm notch cost. 2. I have to try to stick as close as possible to the design intention of the original charm when modifying it. 3. I will propose multiple changes for a single charm if I feel there is more than one good way to rebalance it. 4. Wherever possible, I will round up numbers and rewrite charm descriptions to be more succinct. And finally, when rebalancing a charm, I'll need a baseline to compare it to. I've chosen Spell Twister as my definitive power baseline, and I will therefore not be changing that charm whatsoever. For the sake of this rebalancing effort, Spell Twister will be considered the perfectly balanced charm. With all of that out of the way, I'm Holland, and these are the Hollow Knight charms rebalanced. Number 1. Wayward Compass. This charm reveals your position on the map and is one of few charms with no combat implications. However, I still believe its one notch cost serves a purpose. In my opinion, the Wayward Compass weaves itself nicely into the balance of Hollow Knight by effectively granting you an additional charm notch once you've gotten skilled enough to navigate Hellenist without it. This is an untraditional yet pretty cool way to grant a boon to experienced players. Therefore, I propose no changes to the Wayward Compass. Number 2. Gathering Swarm. Like Wayward Compass, Gathering Swarm is a utility charm. It collects drop geo for you automatically and saves you the hassle of having to go pick it up yourself. It's another charm that's fun to use, but not a necessity. The only change I would propose for Gathering Swarm is to allow it to pick up any geo that was traveling toward you when leaving the screen. Solution. Uncollected geo is automatically picked up when leaving the screen. Number 3. Stalwart Shell. According to the Hollow Knight wiki, Stalwart Shell has two effects. Firstly, it increases the invulnerability duration after being hit by 35%, from 1.3 seconds to 1.8 seconds. Secondly, it reduces the recoil duration after being hit by 60%, meaning that you are knocked back slightly less when taking damage. There are so many problems with this charm. Firstly, it increases an already generous invulnerability timer by less than half a second, with a secondary effect that's barely worth mentioning. Secondly, it does this at the cost of 2 whole charm notches. And thirdly, even if the charm were good enough to use, I believe it promotes an unhealthy playstyle, that being tanking the boss with invulnerability frames without engaging with its mechanics. According to its description, Stalwart Shell builds resilience and makes it easier to escape from dangerous situations. Let's try to reimagine the charm in that image. Solution. Stalwart Shell now costs 3 charm notches up from 2 and loses all previous effects. Instead, Stalwart Shell shields your masks, blocking all damage you would take on your next hit and disabling the charm for 30 seconds. When Stalwart Shell triggers, you incur no knockback and your invulnerability duration is increased by 50% from 1.3 seconds to 2 seconds. Now, I know this might seem like a drastic change, but I think it makes Stalwart Shell into a much more fun and healthy charm. Whether it should work for Radiant boss fights is up for you to decide. Number 4. Soul Catcher. Found very early on, Soul Catcher adds an additional 3 soul to your soul counter every time you strike an enemy, increasing soul gain from 11 to 14. Comparing Soul Catcher to Spell Twister may be essential to understanding why Soul Catcher could be considered moderately underpowered. Here's the thing, Soul Catcher increases your soul gain by 27%, while Spell Twister reduces the cost of your spells by 33%. This makes Spell Twister 6 percentage points more powerful than Soul Catcher, which at first may sound insignificant. But in addition to this, Spell Twister also lets you store more soul in the sense that it doesn't fill up your soul gauge faster, but instead diminishes it slower. Additionally, Spell Twister benefits from soul gained in other ways than through nail strikes, such as the Dream Nail, Grubsong, or King Soul, while Soul Catcher does not. The advantage that Soul Catcher has over Spell Twister is that it allows you to gather soul for healing with focus, whereas Spell Twister only reduces the cost of spells. But even with this slight advantage, I don't believe Soul Catcher is quite on the power level of Spell Twister. As a matter of fact, I have never seen the former picked over the latter by a skilled player. Solution A. Boosting the soul generated from 3 soul per hit to 4 soul per hit, meaning Soul Catcher now generates 36% more soul on nail strikes, pushes it into a position where it may be reliably picked over Spell Twister. Solution B. Alternatively, Soul Catcher could be made into a more unique charm, wholly differentiating it from Spell Twister by lowering its notch cost to 1 notch. To keep the charm balanced, we'd then have to lower its soul generation from 3 to 2 soul per hit, allowing it to generate only 18% more soul on nail strikes. Although I think both solutions could work, I gravitate towards solution B as it would make the charm more unique. Number 5. Shaman Stone. Known for its frequent use in speedrunning, Shaman Stone is a very powerful charm that can be purchased early on in the game. It feels strong to use, yet at the same time does cost a whole 3 charm notches. With that said, I still think Shaman Stone should be nerfed to provide space for other charms to take the spotlight. Shaman Stone increases the size of your Vengeful Spirit and more importantly, the damage of all of your spells. The increases are quite inconsistent, however. I've personally heard the number 50% thrown around quite a lot, but according to the wiki, the charm actually increases the damage of each spell by a separate amount, from 33% all the way to 51%. Solution. To simplify the effects of Shaman Stone while also lowering its impact, Shaman Stone now provides a 25% damage boost to all spells. Number 6. Soul Eater. Soul Eater is Soul Catcher's big brother. It's found in a hidden area of the resting grounds and increases the soul you gain from striking enemies with your nail by 8, from 11 to 19. That's a whopping 72% increase. Now, this charm is very difficult to rate, and here's why. The only time I can justify running this very expensive 4-notch cost charm is when I'm overcharming for Radiant bosses in Godhome. It's actually the only 4-cost charm with an effect that benefits you during a Radiant fight. However, although it feels great to use in Radiant battles, that's only because you can bring its cost down to 1 notch through the overcharm system. I don't think any charm should cost more than 3 notches. Charms with a cost higher than 3 simply limit your build options too much, and more than that, they prove extremely tough to balance with overcharming in the game. Hence the awkward position in which Soul Eater finds itself. Too weak to use while exploring Hallow Nest, but difficult to buff because of overcharming. Here are my suggestions. Solution A. Soul Eater now grants you 10 additional soul up from 8. Note that this makes it even more of an auto-include in Radiant builds. Solution B. Soul Eater now costs only 3 charm notches down from 4. When striking an enemy with the nail, Soul Eater now grants 7 additional soul down from 8. Because of the issue with overcharming, I think solution B is the obvious best choice. Number 7. Dashmaster. Bearing the likeness of an eccentric bug known only as the Dashmaster, this charm is a topic of endless discussion, not based on its viability in gameplay, mind you, but rather on whether or not it's a reference to a certain indie game character. Dashmaster is a charm primarily used for travel around Hallow Nest, as it reduces the cooldown of your dash by 33%, and in my opinion, it does its job well. However, for combat, I rarely see it used. This may be due to the fact that you can already dash frequently enough to where you don't really need it, or it may be a consequence of its moderately high cost of 2 notches. Solution. Dashmaster now costs only 1 charm notch, down from 2. Number 8. Sprintmaster. Like Dashmaster, Sprintmaster is a mobility charm. It increases your movement speed while on the ground by 20%, as well as the movement speed of your weaverlings by 50%. Having a cost of only 1 notch, the charm does have potential to be used in combat, although it's not an overwhelmingly popular pick. The main problem that Sprintmaster faces as a movement charm is that it doesn't impact your speed while jumping or dashing, which you'll be doing a lot of when traversing Hallownest. My only guess as to why this is the case is because the charm might have allowed you to access unintended areas if the speed increase applied while in the air. My original idea was simply to make the speed increase also apply while in the air, but since that may or may not break the game, I'm hesitant to suggest that change. Instead, why don't we just boost the power of the charm a little so it feels more worth using? Solution: Sprintmaster now increases your movement speed while on the ground by 30%. Number 9. Grubsong. This charm is given to you by the Grubfather after freeing 10 grubs around Hallownest, and it's often considered one of the better one-cost charms. Grubsong gives you 15 soul every time you take damage, that's 25 if you also have Grubberfly's Elegy equipped, and unless you're fighting a boss on Radiant difficulty, I think it's quite a good charm. I suppose the only real issue I can point to is the fact that the charm doesn't scale very well with bosses that deal more than 1 mask of damage, so how about this? Solution: Grubsong now grants you 15 soul for every mask lost when taking damage, or 25 soul if Grubberfly's Elegy is also equipped. This simple change should make an already stellar charm keep up in the late game. Number 10. Grubberfly's Elegy. This is the reward for freeing all 46 grubs in the game. As long as you are at full health, you will fire a projectile when striking with the nail, dealing 50% of the nail's damage. I am personally quite a big fan of this charm and the surprisingly fresh new playstyle it brings to the game, but there are a few changes I would like to make. Solution: Grubberfly's Elegy no longer deactivates when you're not at full health, but instead deals more damage the more health you have. 70% of your nail's damage at full health, reduced by 10% for every mask lost. At 7 masks lost, the white hot beam disappears entirely. Note that losing lifeblood does not weaken the power of Grubberfly's Elegy. Additionally, beams shot from the Grubberfly's Elegy now apply knockback to the player, allowing them to pogo using the beams. Perhaps a controversial change, but one which I believe will make the charm more fun to use. And finally, when used in conjunction with Mark of Pride and or Longnail, the beams fired by the Elegy should go further as well as getting wider. And that's how far we're gonna get today. Be sure to subscribe to catch the rest of this mini-series as soon as it comes out. Or, if you're watching in the future, check the description for links to the other parts. I would love to hear what you thought about the ideas in this video, so be sure to let me know by leaving a comment down below. And have a wonderful day. Bye!